Hello, everyone. We're just letting you all in. Thank you so much for being here. Hi, Charlie. I love Charlie. Always comes and has lunch and learns over lunch and learn. I love it. So I can see Graham's on. Thank you so much, David. That's you. Someone's needs to meet you. Be Graham.
That was Graham.
We'll just wait and see if we've got some more coming on before we start. Just give it another 30 seconds or so. I think I'm ready to lunch and learn. I see you good.
Ready. Rock and roll.
All right, let's rock and roll. Good to see you all today. Hi, Jess. Thank you so much for jumping on. Good to see you too. We are here today for our lunch and learn. I am not Helen. That is correct. She is in New Zealand at the FANS conference and sends her love to everybody. I'm joined today by Baxter from our team, as well as Tim from the Franchising Expo. And of course, we've got David here from Origin. So today's lunch and learn, before we get into it, I just wanted to say, if you were there, a lot of you were actually at the awards. Hi, Lani, how you going? And it was so great to see all your faces and all your brands represented. It was such a great day and night. And if you're looking for the photos, they're on our website. If you want to check out all of the activities of the day, you can check it out on the Franchise Industry Awards, and more posts will come out about that shortly as well. But today's lunch and learn is presented by Origin. Like I said, we have David Helmy here. He's the Group Manager of Sales and E-Mobility and began at Origin 11 years ago. So well-versed in the trade, and it's our pleasure to have them here today. So over to you, David. Thank you for being with us.
Cool. Thank you, everyone. Really excited to speak today. And on a topical discussion as well, we'll be talking about electric vehicles. But before I begin, I probably I'll get the slides up, but aim today is to make it probably as interactive as possible. So if you've got any questions, feel free to put it in the chat, and then we can get to it at the end. Otherwise, at the end, feel free just to go off mute and ask the question directly. Purpose of today is really just to demystify electric vehicles and to give some context. But just making sure the slides work. But yeah, before we begin, just wanted to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people, the custodians of this land, and their elders, past and present. As I mentioned, today we will be talking about electric vehicles, and by way of introduction, I work at Origin in an e-mobility team, so in an electric vehicle team. The purpose of our team is essentially to make that switch to electric vehicles as simple as possible. And there's really three key areas that we focus on. So one area is helping businesses to switch their fleets to electric vehicles. The second area is around electric vehicle charging. And then the third area is around electric vehicles and employee benefits. We obviously know that cost of living pressures are really starting to bite. So we've sort of created a program where it's free for the employer to join, and employees can access a range of benefits, including vehicles, but also beyond vehicles as well. So we'll talk about that. To start off, I thought I'd just kind of get a bit of a baseline around sort of some of the market dynamics and some of the sort of things that we're seeing in market. So actually, last month in Australia, we reached a record month. 30% of vehicles or new vehicles which were sold in Australia were electric. Now you can see that in the slide, put BEV and PHEV. So just the simple definition of that. BEV is battery electric vehicle, so the vehicle only runs fully on battery, and a PHEV is a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle. So that's where there is a battery, but there's also a petrol tank as well, and there is a plug to plug in. And really, what's driven that increase? So there's really three things that have driven the adoption of EVs in Australia. So one, over the last 12 to 18 months, I would say there's a much broader range of vehicles which are available in market. So whether that be passenger or light commercial vehicle. The second piece is around lower running costs. And you can see at the bottom of the slide, there's some stats there which I'll touch on. But the cost of electricity to power a vehicle versus petrol or diesel is significantly cheaper. And then the third area is available incentives and grants, and we'll talk about that. Obviously, some of the geopolitical activities over the last months and petrol prices spiking has absolutely helped really show the value of electric vehicles. And sort of the stats in sort of March were probably closer to 15% than 30%. So you can see the impact that those increases in petrol prices have had. However, what I would say is that's probably been the key trigger that's made things transition very quickly. But some of the more broader pieces around government incentives and the range of vehicles available has really supported that. As I mentioned today, there's three things that I want to talk about. So one, how the rise of EVs can be used to support your business growth. So just to put this in context, there's about 450,000 electric vehicles on the road today, and pretty much every state and territory is saying that by 2030 they want 50% of new vehicle sales to be electric. So that will be an additional sort of 500,000 vehicles being added per annum. The second point is more around as a franchisee or a franchisor, how switching your fleet to EVs can help reduce emissions and operational expenditure. And then the third area is around sort of that employee piece that I mentioned before. Just to really set the scene, transport is the third largest source of emissions in Australia today, and vehicle transport makes about 60% of that. So it is a considerable component. And in terms of the benefits of EVs, it's really around the lower running and operating costs of vehicles. You really make a big difference. And Lisa was talking about having concerns about range anxiety, is a phrase that we use.
Range anxiety.
Yeah, there's many vehicles which are over sort of 400 kilometers, and to put that in context, the average Australian drives about 38 kilometers a day. I would say if you've got a sales rep on the road, for example, they're probably doing closer to sort of 100 and 150 kilometers a day on average. So the vehicles that are available now, they're sort of multiples of what a daily person's sort of energy requirements would be, or range requirements would be. Okay, let's jump into it. So how can we, as franchisees and franchisors, how can we support EV adoption and grow revenue within our business? So one of the key themes that has come out of EV adoption, and one of the things that savvy businesses are doing, is installing EV infrastructure at premises. So we call this destination chargers. So, for example, typically speaking, we do expect most of the charging to happen at an EV driver's home. But particularly for those people who are inner city, or those people who are in apartments and so on, they may not be able to charge at their place of presence, or if the parking is off street as well. So in that case, what the industry needs to do, what we're trying to do is we try and mimic, we try and put charging locations where people go about their everyday living, so that drivers aren't spending an hour and a half, 2 hours. Just waiting to charge the car. So typical places would be sort of grocery shopping, cinemas, gyms, restaurants, and really the idea is all of these drivers, they have to charge somewhere. You can see on the slide that there are apps, and there are apps which show you all of the charges in the local area, and it becomes a very effective way of pulling these drivers into a location. Maybe somebody who's going for a bite to eat, so on and so forth. That's something that we've seen a lot of interest in. And as I say, there's about 450,000 drivers today. That number is going to increase significantly in the coming years. In terms of what that means, so with those chargers, they typically are not complementary. So you can actually sort of there's multiple sort of operating models. There's some models where maybe you pay for the chargers, and then you recoup the money via charging sessions from drivers, and all of that is sort of automated with software. Or there's other models where perhaps an EV charging company would pay you to essentially to pay for a car park spot and you would be paid for that. And there are sort of two options. You don't pay anything up front, but you get a fixed amount every year. And then the third thing, you don't need to worry about the day-to-day. Typically speaking, all of these charges will have software, and they'll have third-party providers who will manage all the troubleshooting, all the charging sessions on credit cards and that sort of thing. So just wanted to give a bit of exposure to that. Obviously, Origin are happy to discuss sort of what that could look like. At a very high level, today we're not going to go into the full detail, but at a very high level, typically the way that we would go about it is we would have a conversation at a site basis to understand the existing electrical infrastructure. We also probably have a conversation around sort of the dwell time that you're looking to achieve. So some businesses that maybe put a charger at the location, they're actually happy for the chargers to be a little bit slower because they want the customers to stay maybe an extra 15 minutes or an extra 20 minutes. So there's a little bit of strategy there around the chargers that we select, but essentially we would do that feasibility assessment, and then from there we would put together sort of a project design and installation, and then from there it's sort of commissioning, integration, and then that ongoing sort of 24/7 support. So really that would be an outsourced solution. Obviously your focus would be on the day-to-day operations of your business. So that's something which we're seeing a lot of interest in, and probably my comment would be, if you are in a suburb where there aren't many chargers in the area, I sort of think of it as sort of valuable real estate. If you're the first person or one of the first people to put a charger in that area, it's probably going to detract other businesses in the area from putting chargers in because they can see that need is addressed. So there is, if you're curious to know, if you've got physical premises, if you're curious to understand if there are other chargers in your area, there's a good website called Nearmap, and either it's an app that you download, or you can also just jump into your browser and you can look into that. The second area that I want to talk about was around vehicle fleets and switching to electric vehicles. And there's probably two angles to this. So I've been in this role for about 6 years. And when we were first talking to business about switching to electric vehicles, the cost of electric vehicles was a lot more expensive, and it was very much around sustainability. And really that sustainability piece still holds true in terms of, if you're a business and you have a vehicle fleet, it forms part of your scope 1 emissions. And I've obviously talked about the role that plays. But the comment I would make is that the cost of electric vehicles now, particularly if they're take-home vehicles, each business is a bit different, but in the vast majority of instances, it will actually be cheaper to switch to electric vehicles today. And we'll talk about some of the incentives and grants that are available, but ultimately it's cheaper because most fleets will pay FBT if it's a take-home vehicle for personal usage. There is no future benefits tax for full battery electric vehicles under the luxury car tax threshold. And then the second reason, as I mentioned earlier, is that is essentially the running costs and the maintenance costs are much cheaper. So the term that we typically use is total cost of ownership. And if you've looked at that sort of on a 5-year period or whatever, you will see that the EVs are significantly cheaper. So it's good for the environment. It's good for your business. It's probably a good way, particularly for those businesses that want to be seen to be green, or if you have a product or service that's really focused on on being ethical. It's a really good way of communicating your values as well. Sort of in terms of what vehicles, there are a range of vehicles. I'm not going to go into every brand and every. I guess the vehicles which are up here are full battery electric. There's everything from small vehicles which are sort of point A to point B, all which bottom right, which is your BYD Dolphin, all the way to sort of 7-seater vehicles and everything in between. From our perspective, we would work with you, A, to make sure that EVs are feasible, B, to show that the financial or operational savings that could be had, and C, sort of to talk through sort of how we can help you, procure or lease those vehicles, charging infrastructure, and so on.
Hey, David,
Yeah.
are you brand agnostic, or you deal with any electric car, or are you exclusive?
No, so our idea is to be led by the customer's fit for purpose requirements from a fleet perspective, but also by the customer's needs. So if you want something on the fancier end, there's a Mercedes on the slide, for example, or if you wanted something which is a bit more cost effective, BYD, but we'll go everywhere in between. And I mentioned incentives and grants. These slides, I can see that they're probably not as. I should make the slide a bit bigger, so sorry about the detail being a bit small. There are three areas where there are incentives that can help make the costs even more effective. So one is Origin managed to get some funding from a government body called ARENA. That government body has allowed us to provide or subsidize the supply of EV chargers, so that would be the supply and installation of the chargers, up to $4,000, which typically is enough for a standard installation. And that's a program which is running at the moment until September 2026. So that's something, you might get the car, but how do you charge the vehicle? So that's one component. The second area, if you have either if you've got a premise in New South Wales, or if you have franchisors in New South Wales, there is a New South Wales government EV fleet incentive. So the way that program works is if there is a delta between the petrol and the EV switching, they will essentially bridge the gap in terms of financial cost. And in this scenario, Origin acts as an aggregator, so we get funds of money through a reverse auction process, and then we can pass on these incentives to businesses. And then the third area, which I mentioned, and this is more of a tax change, which is that fringe benefits tax exemption. That works in twofold. So it works for fleets if you have an employee and the vehicle is take home, and that vehicle that employee uses the vehicle for personal benefit. There is FBT which is paid on that. That can be real significant. With full battery electric vehicles, there is no FBT, which is associated with that vehicle. It makes a significant difference. In the thousands. I'm not being specific today because it really depends on the specifics. But again, be happy to provide more detail. And then I feel like I'm doing a bit of a dip into different topics. So then the third area that was happy to have a discussion around today was how are we supporting employees to reduce emissions and costs? I mentioned before that the cost of living pressures is becoming a real key theme. And so one of the things we've done is we've created an employee benefits program. And the idea is that the employer signs up to the program, and then all of the employees can get access to a range of benefits. So you can see on this slide, there is an EV subscription, which I'll talk about, but there's also special offers for electricity and gas, solar and battery, internet discounts, EV charger discounts, and other partner discounts. And that's a real good way, of showing value to your employees. It's a good way to retain and even acquire staff when you're, to improve staff engagements and so on. If I delve into that a little bit more, so as I mentioned, the sort of the electricity offers are sort of attractive for residential employees. There's also discounts on internet. The EV subscription I'll talk about in more detail. That is salary packaged. And then if any employees want solar or batteries or a home EV charger, but we've also got this partner perk. So the idea is that we're going to continue to broaden this program. So at the moment, you can get discounts on things like LG Electronics by signing up to this program. Your employees would also be able to get discounts on electric bikes. So Lug and Carry, the blue doesn't really come up on the purple particularly amazing, but Lug and Carry. And then the idea is that there's going to be a heap of other benefits that employees can access. And all of this is free, for the employer to sign up, but also for the employees to access. On the EV, I mentioned it's salary package. So this will come from pre-tax dollars. And essentially, Origin got a ATO product ruling. So typically with this offering, where vehicles are salary packaged, they're novated leasing, where there's a commitment that an employee will have a vehicle for the long term, and typically there's also a commitment that at the end of that agreement, that there's a balloon, financial balloon to be paid. With our offering, it's probably the best of both worlds. So you get all of the tax benefits from the FBT exemption. You get all of the inclusions that you would expect from a salary package vehicle. So things like rego, insurance, maintenance, roadside assist. The only thing that you would pay outside of this fee would be for electricity, which we've got a special offer, and then sort of tolls and so on. But the real difference from this program is, think of it like a rolling month-to-month contract. So at any stage, if you want to return the vehicle, you just send Origin a message and we'll return the vehicle 30 days later. So there's no setup fees, there's no cancellation fees. All you need to do is give us 30 days notice, you can return the vehicle, and that gives you flexibility in 2 or 3 regards. So one, because you're not making that commitment, there's no financing. So if you're looking to buy a house, for example, and credit checks and all the rest of it are really important, that's something to bear in mind. But also from an employee's perspective, if their financial situation changes, they haven't made a long-term commitment, they can return the vehicle. Or if their lifestyle changes, they need a bigger car because the family's getting bigger, or they want a smaller car, you've got that flexibility to swap. I will talk through some of the numbers and so on, so you can get a bit more of a better idea. So this is essentially kind of how it works. I should mention, although there's no obligation to buy the car, you do have an option to buy the car if you subscribe for 3 years or longer. So the slide which is in front of you is based on a marginal tax rate. Well, different marginal tax rates, which you can see. We've got the BYD Atto, which is we'd call entry level, and then probably more mid range would be the Tesla Model Y. If we just go with the Atto 1, from a pre-tax perspective, maybe let's just go with the 39% tax band. From a pre-tax perspective, it's sort of $290. What the employee would see come out of their take-home pay would be $176 per week. And as I say, that cost is all in. So your rego, your insurance, your roadside assist, all of that is included in that. If you're in a higher tax band, you can see that the amount reduces to 153. If you're in a lower tax band, it increases to 197. But you can see for your employees, in that instance, they'll be saving between $4,800 to just over $7,000 in a year in reducing taxable income. The real cool thing about the program is that there are pre-loved. Well, there's multiple things, but one of the things is the pricing, which I just showed you there, were for brand new vehicles. Because this is a subscription, vehicles are coming back all the time. So, for an employee that was looking for a vehicle but wants it more cost effective, they would jump into our portal and they might see a vehicle which is 12 or 18 months old. It might have 20,000 kilometers, and they would get that vehicle at a discount to what the traditional vehicle. So we're I mentioned at the start, our aim is to try and simplify the switch to EVs and to try and make the barriers to EV adoption simpler. But by doing that, it sort of broadens the appeal to everyone. And just a couple of things. So we've used the Tesla Model Y. Your loyalty will be rewarded. So if you keep a vehicle for more than 12 months, every 12 months you'll get a 15% discount, and then you've got the option to buy after 3 years. So you can see in the bottom right that for that Tesla Model Y, the pre-tax amount is $505 a week, post-tax is $308. In the second year, that drops to $261. Third year, it drops to $222, and that drops down to $160. So if you looked at that over a 5-year period, you can see that the average would be $228 over a 5-year period. So it will start off a bit higher in the first year, but as those loyalty discounts kick in, it will reduce.
Who doesn't love a bargain?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's sort of it from me today. In terms of your the way that the employee benefits program works, there is a portal. Actually, sorry, let me take a step back. There's a small agreement which the employer would sign with Origin. That all that's really saying is that you're happy for the program to work. We would have a discussion around sort of payroll to facilitate the vehicle component. It's all digital, so there's a portal which your employees can log in and they can self-serve on any of the other benefits. But for the vehicles, there's a portal which shows the brand new vehicles and the price, the pre-loved vehicles, the tax implications, and so on and so forth. But yeah, happy to talk about all things EVs. So feel free to fire some questions my way.
Fantastic.
Fantastic. Unmute yourself if you'd like to ask a question. Croaky voice, sorry. I've got one for you in the meantime, but while they're all thinking. I think everyone realises that EVs are the way to go moving forward. I mean, we were having a good discussion even before the call today. But there might be some hesitancy for some people out there. When's the right time? When should people look? What do you think, advice-wise?
Yeah,
The right time to do it.
So I'll probably say two things. I think one of the things I didn't touch about charging is the topic which comes up a lot. So all of the vehicles, like regardless of brand, whenever you get a vehicle, you'll be supplied with a charging cable which you can plug into a standard power point. And yep,
Wow.
it will be. You'll probably think about, oh yeah, that's going to take a while to charge up the car. So for context, just using a standard power point on the assumption you have a garage or some off-street parking, that will add between 12 to 15 kilometers of range per hour of charging. So for the average person who's sort of getting home at maybe 7 p.m., leaving at 7 a.m., that will give you about 150 to 180 k's of range. So for the average person who's driving the 40 or 100 kilometers a year, that 100 kilometers a day, I should say, that should be more than suffice. For fleets, that the reason that Origin got that ARENA funding that I was talking about was because we understand the importance of having a car at 100%. Those chargers, AC chargers, which anyone can buy, they're about sort of $2,500. They will give you about 50 kilometers of range per hour for charging. So overnight you will get to 100%. So from my perspective, if we look at to get to your question, if we look at where the market's at, I think there's a range of vehicles which are a lot more cost effective now. You've got BYDs, you've got MGs. The prices really come down. I think from an ongoing cost perspective, the savings are clear, particularly if your business or if your home, for your employees, has solar at the house. Excess solar, you're not getting a huge amount of money for that solar, and if you can use that to power your car, that's really sort of cost effective. So when you pull those things together, and you've got vehicles which have got a range of 400 or 500 kilometers, that really works on an individual level. For a business perspective, it's benefits to your bottom line. Essentially, there's not too much changes you need to make operationally, and it's just a real cost-effective way of improving your financials without having to make any drastic changes.
Right. Got any questions, Tim? Anyone else on the call got any questions?
Quick question for you. The novated lease option is limited to battery-only vehicles. Is that correct?
Yeah. So there's probably two bits to that. So Origin only offers full battery electric. However, with the FBT exemption in the early days, it's been going for probably a couple of years. In the early days, plug-in hybrids were eligible. That got phased out probably about 12 months ago. So now the FBT exemption is only eligible for full battery electric vehicles. And just for everyone's visibility, the FBT exemption will be changing as of 1 April next year. Vehicles which are over $75,000, but under the luxury car tax, which is almost around 90 grand, they will get a reduced FBT exemption benefit. Those vehicles under 75Ks will still get the full FBT exemption.
Okay. Heard it first here. I still am worried about charging. I have a hybrid and I like that I don't have to worry about charging, but I guess you just get used to that, right?
Yeah.
That's the point. You don't have to get petrol on the way past. You were talking about that?
I have 2 electric cars and I really don't worry about charging. I'm lucky I've got 3-phase in my garage, and it's in 3 or 4 hours I can get to 100%. And I do that once a week. and that's
Right.
it.
That's it.
And that, you
You just get used to it like everything else.
and you get used to it. Yeah, it's I wouldn't go back. And the FBT exemption, FBT is one of the most annoying taxes you pay as a business operator. You know, I'd say I'd save 10,000 a year on that.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
There you go.
So maybe just to round out, if there's no other
Yeah.
questions. So my call out to everyone is, you know, if you think that you're interested in the savings, but you know, have got some trepidation like Lisa, my advice would actually just be, if in the first instance you need some confidence, just go to a dealership and drive a car, because once you get behind the wheel and you see how the car drive, you'll realize that the technology is really good. I actually see the switch to EVs. Yes, there's a whole decarbonization piece and around moving to renewable energy and powering them that way. But actually, it's about the digitization of vehicles. So we're moving from a world where you know, you're having your car serviced based on time or kilometers, and now you're moving to a world where the car will actually tell you that it needs to be serviced. So that's kind of what's going on. So that would be number one. I think number two, if anything you took was around the financials and how you can maybe pull in additional sort of customers to your businesses. Jump on that Nearmaps sort of app page and see if there's any charges in your area, because EV drivers, you know, if you're driving from Melbourne, Sydney, or even if you're just if you're a salesperson on the road and you need a top up, you will plan your lunch or your lunch break around where to charge, and that's a good opportunity. And as I said before, if there is a gap in your area in terms of not many chargers, it is prime real estate, and getting in first will dissuade other businesses. And then the third area, obviously, employees are doing it tough. If there is this is a very effective way for employees to save money, and it doesn't cost you anything.
Amazing. Very good. Well, thanks for the information. No more questions. We'll just move on. This will be sent out to you in a recording. We'll also pass on your details if that's all right. If there's any questions or follow-up, you'd like to talk to Origin, they're always only a phone call away. They're here to help, one of our proud partners. And so, just reach out through that. That'd be great. Just want to move on to our next Lunch and Learn.
My slides are playing up.
Slides are playing up, but I can give you the information. That's all right. The next one is on, the date is the 8th of July. And we have Operandio, and it's using connected intelligence to strengthen the franchisor and franchisee partner relationship. So looking forward to having those guys on board. It's all about setting franchisees up for success, which is what we want to do. That's why we exist. So make sure you jump on that call. And it's been great to have you all this lunch and learn. We'll see you next.
On the next one.
On the next one. So I'll tell Helen you said hi. Thanks, everyone.
See ya.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye. And I didn't do Helen's selfie.